2020 is going to be an interesting year for notebooks, and I think you'll hear me say that every single time when I take a look at a brand new laptop. Because recently AMD announced their Ryzen 4000 series mobile processors, and we saw its blistering performance. And then we have Intel striking back with their 10th gen Comet Lake processors, which is basically a refresh of 9th generation. But it's being launched in a whole new series of notebooks. We also have NVIDIA announcing the RTX Supermax Q graphics cards, which is also supposed to bring more performance to the gaming notebook space. The reason why I bring all of this up is because it directly affects how Razer is approaching their Blade 15 lineup for 2020. Unfortunately, there are no plans for AMD processors on these new Blade notebooks, but they are more faster. They've got a few key design updates as well as improved displays. But I'm also concerned about a few things which I'll talk about right after a quick message from our sponsor.
The new Corsair K95 Platinum RGB XT lets you program the 6 macro keys on the left to work beautifully with Stream Deck for endless customization while you stream or game, plus PBT keycaps, a comfy wrist rest, and a quality K95 body. Check it out below.
Okay, so what I have in front of me is the Blade 15 base model. Now, unfortunately, I can't disclose performance yet because there is a separate NDA for that, and the sample that I have over here is a pre-production unit with the 10th gen CPU and an RTX 2070. Now, do keep in mind that the base model will not feature the RTX Super graphics cards. That will be reserved for the advanced model. But until we can talk about performance, let's go over some of the changes Razer has done externally and internally to the Blade 15 lineup. Let's start with the exterior. It looks pretty much the same compared to last year's model. They're using the same CNC aluminum mill chassis, and it's a little bit thicker compared to the advanced model, but you do get a gigabit Ethernet port. It also weighs a bit more than the advanced model, so 5 pounds versus 4.6. Opening it up, you're greeted with the same keyboard layout, except they have separated the arrow keys from the shift key, so you don't have to worry about mixing it up. But I gotta say, that is the longest shift key that I've ever seen on a notebook. We've all complained about that terrible right shift key, but now it's just supersized. So there's that. Another thing I need to mention is Razer is keeping the same keyboard switches as the previous generation, which is very unfortunate because one of my biggest pet peeves about the Blade 15 lineup are those key switches, because they don't really provide adequate amount of travel distance or good feedback compared to the competition from Legion, from Gigabyte, and of course we have ROG notebooks coming with better keyboards these days. So I really wished if Razer improved on that part, but they decided to stick with what they have. The trackpad remains the same too, but why change a good thing, right? I mean, honestly, this is still one of the best trackpads around. These new laptops feature the latest 10th gen H series processors, but on the base model, you are getting the 6-core 12-thread Core i7-10750H CPU with 16 gigabytes of RAM in dual channel, running at slightly faster speeds compared to last year's model. The GPU config is pretty much the same too, so it starts with a 1660 Ti, and then you can upgrade to an RTX 2060 or an RTX 2070. The storage gets a little bit of a bump, so it starts at 256 gigabytes of storage, and then there's a 512 gig option as well. However, they did eliminate the extra 2.5-inch 1 terabyte drive on these base models, but they've replaced it with an additional open M.2 slot. So I think that is a good trade-off, but what do you guys think? Okay, so I do need to address the lack of AMD on these systems. You see, Razer is looking into adding AMD on their future Blade notebooks. It's just that you can't magically snap your fingers and include these new processors into existing notebooks and come up with a whole new series of AMD laptops. Because if you think about it, it requires a lot of engineering, design changes, and most importantly, a lot of money. And for a small notebook manufacturer like Razer, it just wasn't a feasible thing to do to include these new processors. However, if there is demand for these new Ryzen CPUs, it'd be crazy for Razer to not add AMD on their future Blade notebooks later down the road. Back to the video. Moving on to the display, Razer is offering a couple of options this time. So the default spec comes with a 1080p 144Hz matte screen that covers 100% sRGB, but if you are looking for a little bit more color accurate screen, Razer is offering a 4K OLED option that covers 100% DCI-P3. The model that I have here has that 4K OLED option, and it looks incredible, guys. It's super bright compared to my old Blade 15 Advanced model with a 240Hz display, and the colors, Well, obviously they're vibrant with deeper blacks. Honestly, if you're looking for a color accurate screen, this is it. But you are going to be paying a pretty big premium for it. Now, the starting price for the base model is $1,600. And for that, you get the new 6-core 10-gen CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, a 1660 Ti, 256 gigs of storage, and that 1080p 144Hz display. When you add $300 to that, you get an RTX 2060, twice the storage, and if you add an extra $100, that'll bump you up to an RTX 2070. And finally, there's that 4K OLED screen. That's right, it's an extra $300. So a fully kitted out Blade 15 base model is going to set you back $2,300. To be perfectly honest with you, I am not impressed with Razer's pricing strategy here because it looks like they didn't look closely at what the competition was offering. I mean, look, over these past few years, the Blade 15 series has been known to offer great build quality and portability, and they managed to pack some pretty impressive specs into a fairly slim chassis. But when you look at the competition, especially from what AMD is offering with the Ryzen 4000 series on something like the Zephyrus G14, paired with an RTX 2060, you're only paying less than $1,500. So paying $1,600 for a 1660 Ti or $1,900 for an RTX 2060, I think it's just going to be a really hard sell for Razer, guys. But there is one possibility though. Performance on GPUs and CPUs are dependent on thermals. So the temperatures are in the right spot, then clock speeds would increase, which means if Razer manages to cool all the components inside the hardware, then the GTX 1660 Ti model could compete against some RTX 2060 based notebooks. But that's a long shot. That's a really long shot. We really have to evaluate it once we get our hands on the production sample, but we'll just wait and see. Moving on to the Blade 15 advanced models, Razer is still going to be using the same chassis. The keyboard layout has been updated just like the base model with that middle finger of a shift key. I do want to mention that you still get Razer's per-K chroma lighting on the advanced models versus the single zone on the base model. Chroma certainly takes the edge here because it's brighter and it looks a lot better than the base. The biggest improvement under the hood is of course the updated 10-gen H-series CPU, but this time they opted for the Core i7-10875H 8-core 16-threaded processor instead of the 12-thread processor. That's really good news for creators or anyone who needs more power in a fairly thin chassis. NVIDIA's Super Max-Q GPUs have also made their way into the advanced models. The storage pretty much remains the same, starts at 512, but they've added a 1TB option as well. The I/O has been refined a bit, so they've ditched the mini display port for a USB Type-C 3.2 Gen 2 port. And finally, Razer has included a full-size UHS 3 card reader. They've heard my prayers. That's the one thing that I've been missing out on the Blade 15 model. I'm glad that they've included that. I don't have to worry about dongles anymore. I'm a happy guy. Finally, there's the display. Razer decided to opt for a 300Hz 1080p IPS type panel. Now, just a little history lesson on IPS technology since I think it's important. So even though Razer is technically using a higher quality in-plane switching panel, they can't market it as IPS unless if those panels are from LG. And the reason for that is LG holds the trademark for IPS and they've been coming hard down on companies who use that exact same name. So while plenty of notebook manufacturers come out with great in-plane switching LCD panels, they just can't market it as IPS because of LG. Damn, LG being super shady. Anyways, let's quickly talk about expected performance. So on these notebooks, expect maybe 5 to 10% improvement over last gen, specifically on the base model. Now, even though they're using the 10-gen CPUs, I don't think it shouldn't make a huge difference because they're technically the same CPUs except with higher boost frequencies. However, on the advanced models, the inclusion with the 16-threaded processor should be a game changer, especially when paired with the new RTX Super Max-Q graphics cards. Now, I have to be perfectly transparent. I've been using the Blade 15 Advanced primarily as my editing machine for the past year or so, producing most of these videos for Hardware Canucks. So I'm really looking forward to testing out the performance of these new CPUs. And if I'm getting more performance for basically the same price, it's a win-win. The advanced model starts at $2,600, so the same price as last gen. You get the new 300Hz 1080p display, RTX 2070 Max-Q, 16 GB of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, and that new 8-core Intel CPU. The RTX 2080 Super Max-Q variant goes for $3,000, but in addition to that, you get twice the storage, and that 4K OLED option is a whopping $3,300. Yeah, that is It's a lot. So there's everything that you need to know about the Blade 15 lineup for the rest of the year. I can't wait to compare these new 8-core Intel processors against what AMD is offering with the Ryzen 9 series. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about the new lineup from Razer. Stay safe, stay healthy, a lot more content coming your way. I'm Ibor with Hardware Canucks. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.